Magero, this is with Inner Peace. Loving you is complicated. What I've got to do to get right with you. With you. Really, really complicated. Say what I've got to do to get right. Do to get right with you in my mind. As a child, I used to find it difficult to distinguish the difference between right and wrong. When I got older, I developed somewhat of an internal fire, like a burning desire to extinguish these past misdemeanors as a means to acquiring inner peace. I finally made a conscious agreement with my conscience that I could never right my wrongs. So instead, I right my wrongs. See, I have a right to inner peace, so decided to right my wrongs in a peace in order to reach a solemn state of serenity that I know is my inner glow. So here it goes. When I was 6 years old, I stole a single stick of licorice from a local liquor store. My mother found it in my pocket. When confronted, I insisted that it was not my fault. My imaginary friend had put it there. His name was Cornelius. I know. Genius. At the tender age of 8, I committed my first murder. Except it was an insect. I then covered a slug in salt and watched it shrivel and hope that all slugs go to heaven. I'm now convinced they don't. At the age of 10, I traded in my best friend for someone more trendy. Yes, indeed, Sanjay was my bestie, but at the time that friendship was not what was best for me, so please believe I had no option but to make like a tree and leave. See, I figured being friends with Jermaine would gain the attention of the girl I had been crushing on since reception, and it did. Thing is, she got close to me only to get closer to him. Now, I was taught that the sweetest juice is produced by the darkest fruit, you know, the blacker the berry. Therefore, I called her my sweet, juicy watermelon. Because her name was Melanie. Yet apparently, according to dark-skinned Melanie, I had a smidge too much melanin. So like adrenaline, she rushed towards the lighty beside me. No lighty, no likey, and the irony. She swerved the boy with the melanin for a man who now prefers men in him, but that is none of my business. That is none of my business. I have never been one for meddling. Loving you is complicated. Loving you is complicated. Loving you is complicated. At 14, my mom bought me FIFA. Big mistake. I recollect it like it was yesterday. She said, Magero, natakupiga. Don't you dare play that game until you revise. To which I replied, I've already revised. But in the case of my SATs in year 9, the science test determined that that was a lie. See, throughout my academic life, I always achieved good grades, but barely tried. In hindsight, I probably should have focused. However, there are no eyes in my behind, therefore hindsight is no vision of mine. In my mind, it's complicated. Yeah. Loving you is complicated. Loving you is complicated. Over the years, I have been one of the greatest sellers of dreams. I honestly believe Billie Jean was specifically written for me. See, people always told me, be careful what you do. Don't go around breaking young girls' hearts. But for me, that became a task. I kept a tally, charts and graphs, their hearts in jars. Used my creativity, it became an art. I eventually mastered my craft when I realized if I could make a girl laugh, I could make her love. Give her butterflies, hot sweats, all the above, no matter what the complexion. That didn't mean a thing. Yet I never took time to think of the ramifications of my actions, but rather used the excuse that my intentions were always pure, despite the fact they left my victims in the state of a broken safe, insecure. I consistently ignore the poor. Should they approach from the right, I might deflect towards a stranger on the left in search of a greater rapport, or to explore the streets decor. I have no qualms with feeding the poor. But I refuse to feed a fiend in need who cannot define how much a dollar costs. But who am I to judge? How can I decline to give after being blessed with so much? I continuously penny pinch to keep my flow in flux. Maybe I'm like a broken iPhone screen, completely out of touch. I'm selfish, but it's complicated. Loving you is complicated. Self-love is complicated. I hate being complimented. Self-hate is overrated. I need to be emancipated. Swear loving you is complicated. The last of my confessions is one I wish I could forget. It easily stands alone as my biggest regret. For years, I avoided my father at all costs. I avoided my father at all costs. I avoided my dad at all costs. So does that mean I put a price on his life? A bounty on his head. I did not wish to spend time till he was bound by his bed. He was bedbound, and I was bound to regret this decision of indecision, which seemingly led me to tentatively step with caution when considering visiting my father, much as if he were no more than a game of double dutch. I didn't wish to spend time till he was bound by his bed. I barely paid him any mind until his mind was nearly dead. I avoided my dad at all costs. Saw us spending quality time as a waste of mine. See, I preferred to go out and turn up than turn up at his doorstep just in time, like Justin in time, which was now running out. How accurate that concept. Time equals money, therefore to save my minutes, I put a cap on our connection and avoided my dad at all costs until he had a stroke. Different strokes for different folks, and this one could rival Michael Phelps. It was a killer. Suddenly, time became a different currency. The value of the pound went up against dilly dollaring around. I would pound the pavement to visit him instead of pound sterlingering on road or simply shilling at home. To be frank, I now realize that my dad was the yin to my yen. Football was our thing, so I'd visit every day to watch the Euros with him, but the stroke had removed something from within. From time to time, neither the left nor right side of his mind could remember who I am. I'm your son. Okay, I understand time can't be bought, but surely I could exchange a penny for his thoughts. I thought I could make up time. I'd gambled away in this casino of life. If only I could tie dollar signs to a time machine, I'd pay my way back to the start. Now, would that make a difference or not? I planned to make up for lost time, get rich or die trying, but every time I was there, the stench of approaching death was in the air. It was a filthy scent I couldn't bear. And then I got the call he'd been rushed to hospital. The moment was here, and it was finally time for me to face my greatest fear. As the robotic rhythmic beeps of my father's pulse disappeared and my bombarding heartbeat was drowned out by the gushing sound of these waterfalls we call tears, I wept as he exhaled his last breath. Zoned out to the sound of my siblings' cries, from which I built a secluded shrine of harmonious chimes, I looked up to the sky as his soul veered up to the Most High. This is what it sounds like when doves cry. A melodic sigh as you try to pimp a butterfly, and I, yes I, bound in chains by the constraints of my mind. You see, my mind's like a maze. I'm amazed by the way it remains able to cane me through pathways which lead only towards my past mistakes. Just as Cain betrayed Abel, my brain is unable to forgive and forget. I now find myself an involuntary enemy to my infinite memory. I am rolling with the elephants, a claustrophobic inhabitant who mentally shares residence with these elephants in the room, consumed by the fumes of this internal fire, like a burning desire to extinguish these past misdemeanors as a means to acquiring inner peace. I search for a solution. Not at the bottom of a bottle. I've never been a fan of that liquid solution. Swimming pools are for sinning fools, and the pull of intoxication, even in moderation, could never serve to appease me of my lack of inner peace. I still search for a solution. A senseless search which led me to no foregone conclusion until one day I stopped searching and the equation was solved. It was as if X marked the spot and I could not work out why, but the solution found me. See, it's funny. I used to think Amazing Grace was the tale of an amazing girl named Grace. However, I was unaware of just how amazing Grace was until she saved me. Found me hitchhiking on the road to recovery. As I stepped within the comfortable confines of her people carrier, she said, I must warn you, life is a beach, but the road to salvation is a rocky one. You cannot sandal paths. Initially despondent, I eventually responded, salvation is my goal, and I do not wish to see the bottomless pit of defeat, so please, cover up my soul. I cannot walk on water. I am but a mortal man. I cannot put right my wrongs, but there is one who can. Restore me to a peaceful place like the resting state of a Pokemon. You see, I walk with Jesus. Not in a Jesus peace, but I know there is a piece of He deep rooted inside of me, and you reap what you sow. They say the eyes are the window to the soul. So take the time to look deeply into mine, and you will know, for the light of Christ that shines bright in I will show. As I finally reach my solemn state of serenity that I know is my inner glow. Loving me is complicated, but knowing God loves me makes it more straightforward. From this day forward and for all that's gone before it, I forgive me. Magero.